Greetings and salutations, Mr. H here with a big update this week. Today I'm going to model a Lego character in Maya. I'll start with some primitives and add in edge loops to refine those shapes. I'll also be combining different primitives to create more complex pieces for the model. When I get to the legs and arms, I'll be using booleans to cut out sections of the model, as well as the bridge tool to connect shapes to achieve my desired results. So without further ado, let's get started. Alright, click on the polygon cylinder button right here and then just hit W for your move tool and move it up to where the head is. Right now I have X-ray turned on so that I can see through the objects in these different panels. You can see here. So let's take the subdivision axis down to a smaller number like 8. And then let's change the subdivision's caps to 3. Let me just see here. No, I only need. No, that'll be good. Okay. So I'm going to scale this and just line it up here. And it's actually probably needs to be a little bit larger than this. And then I'll just place it. Okay. So now up here, what I want to do is, let me press F to frame this. And I'm going to go to vertex, and what I want to do is I want to figure out how wide to make the top part of his head right here. So I'm actually going to go over here and click on my modeling toolkit, and this will allow me to switch very easily between my marquee selection and my drag selection. So I'm going to click on drag, and then I'll just click and drag around the center ring, and then I'll hold down shift and then click and drag around the second ring. And now I've got everything selected on the top here that I want, and I'm going to dolly in over here, press R, and I want to scale in, and I want to line up the edge of this radius with this line right here. So the outer radius right here is lining up over here. Alright, and I can also see that this inner radius is also lining up right here, I believe. I'll double check this though. I'll just reselect this right here, and I can see it over here. And actually I need to scale this up a little bit. So it needs to be, so what I'm looking for are the vertices, and this is actually a little bit hard to see. Let me take this down. I'll go back to my marquee, select everything on the top here, and move down. So it's a little bit easier to see this now. Okay, so I'll go back to drag. I'll drag around, and now I can see what size I need to scale this to so that it matches up with the hole in the top of the head right here. Alright, so now I'm going to switch to face mode, and I'll just select all these faces here, and then I'll hit the extrude button, which is down here in the modeling toolkit. It's also over here on the shelf. So I'll hit extrude, and I'll just move my extrusion up. I want to go up here. And now I have the right size for the top of the Lego character's head. Alright. So down here, let me, I'll switch back to my marquee selection, and I'm going to just move this down. And then down here, we need to do the same thing with this section of the neck right here. So I'll start by clicking, I'll select my drag option here, and I'll drag around right here. Got all that stuff selected. I'll press R and scale it in. So again, I want to check and make sure that the radius of the this edge loop right here is stopping right here where the neck is. Okay. And then I'll do the same thing on this right here. So I'll select all this stuff and then press R, and down here I'll just scale up, and I can see that's the edge, that's the radius right there. So now what I can do is I can select these faces here. Oops. Let me try that again. Alright, so I'm going to extrude these faces down, and then I'll select these faces right here and extrude them up. So let me hit the extrude button. I'll go straight up here, and then I'll hit G to extrude one more time. And there we've got the other side. Okay, so now what we need to do is add in some edge loops. And I don't have my edge loop tool up here, so I'm going to go to Mesh Tools, Insert Edge Loop. I'm going to hold down Control and Shift, and then I'll let go, and then I'll drop it on the shelf right here. So I'm going to take my edge loop tool and add in some edge loops, because when we smooth this, I want there to be a harder edge around the top here, and then down here. And then we need him to add 2 edge loops here and 2 right here probably, and maybe 1 in the middle. So I'm now going to go back to my marquee. I'll double click on this edge loop right here, press R and scale in. Double click on this edge loop and scale that in. And I'm going to do the same thing on the bottom. Select the edge loop, scale it in, and then select this edge loop, scale that in. Okay. So now that I have the head shaped roughly here, actually, let's see, down here we need to add in some edge loops so that this maintains a sharper edge here. Okay, so let's take a look at this now. I'm going to select the object, press 3 on the keyboard, and here we've got, let me turn off my, let's see, yeah, just unselect it, and you can see we've got the head shape. I'm looking at it over here in the side view and the front view, and it looks pretty close. Okay, so let's go ahead and move on to the torso area. So I'm going to create a, actually, before we do that, let's rename this. I'm going to go over here, and this is going to be head. And now we can start with the body, or the torso. So I'll create a cube, and I'm going to move it up. And let's name this right now, torso. And let me just scale this out. And let's see, let's go over here to the side view. And let's go to vertex. I'll select the vertices here and go out. Select these vertices on the top here and go in. Okay. And then I'm going to go to face mode and extrude this down right here. All right. So now what we need to do is add in some edge loops. So I will add in some edge loops. Let's see, we want to keep this edge right here. And then we just need to have these edge loops so that when we smooth it out, the character maintains his box-like shape. All right, I think that should be good. Let's hit Q, right-click, go to Object Mode, and I'll hit 3 on the keyboard to preview that. And that looks good. So let's move it up, or actually let's move the head down just a tiny bit. Yeah, there we go. Let me take this edge right here and move it down just a little bit. Okay. All right, the next shape is kind of this pelvis area. So let's go ahead and create that. I'm going to create a new cube, and let's rename it pelvis. I'll move it up. scale it down, scale it out. I'll move it up a little bit more. All right, I'm going to scale it out over here in the side view. Looks like the torso could be scaled out a little bit too here. So let's see here. All right, that looks good. And so now let me add in some edge loops. I need one right here, obviously, and one right here. And then in general, let's see, we'll need probably kind of divide it into thirds going that way. And I think from this point we can just add in some edge loops around the corners. Actually, let's do this. Let's shape this a little bit. So I'm going to go to vertex, select these right here, and move this up. Okay. And then we're going to need to put this piece in. So let's create a cylinder for that. And I'm going to rotate this 90 degrees. So on Z, we'll just rotate it 90 degrees. And then on the subdivision axis, I'm going to change that to 8. And let's see here. All right, so I think what we want to do actually is get rid of one of these edge loops here. So I'm going to go to Edge, double click on this edge loop right here, and go up to Edit Mesh, and then go down to Delete Edge Vertex. I'm going to add this to my shelf, so I'm going to hold down Control and Shift, and then I'll let go on the mouse. So I'm going to delete that, and double click on this edge loop, and move it to the center here. Okay. And let's take a look here. I'm going to scale this down. Move it into place here. All right, now I remember. So what we need to do now is add in 2 more edge loops. One right here and one right here. So we can connect that shape. So I'm going to go to object mode. I'll take this cylinder here and scale it in. And over here in the perspective panel, I'm going to turn on my wireframe unshaded so I can see what geometry I'm working with here. And let's go to edge right here. Actually, I'm going to go to vertex, select this vertex, this whole row of vertices at the bottom in the middle here, push that up. And let's take these vertices here and move them down. Okay. Okay. So now what I'm going to do is go to object mode, and I'll hit Q for my selection tool. I'm going to go to face, select these 2 faces, delete them. Go back to object mode, select the disk here, and let me move this down so I can actually see something here. Go to face, select these 2 faces here, and delete those. Okay, so now I'm going to go to object mode, select both of these objects. I'll go back over here to my modeling toolkit, and I'm going to combine these 2 objects. And then what I'll do is I'm going to go to edge, see if I can double click on that edge loop right there, double click on this edge loop right here. So I've got 2 edge loops selected here. Then I'll click on bridge, and then up here in this pop-up window, I'm going to change the divisions. I'll click and drag, change the divisions to 0, and I'll click away from that window. And now what I can do is I can select, I'll go to face mode, I'll select all these faces and just move this back up into place. So now we have our pelvis area. So now we need to add in some edge loops to maintain the shape here. So let's try this. Let's add in an edge loop up here at the top, and then one at the bottom, and then we need it on the sides, and then here as well. We need it here. All right. So I'm going to hit Q, right click, go to object mode, and I'm going to hit 3 on the keyboard. And then we have that piece. Shape looks okay. We need to do a few more edge loops here. So I'm going to hit 1, and let's see, we need to add in edge loops here and here, as well as some edge loops over here. And now let's try this again. I'm going to go back to object mode, press 3 on the keyboard, and there we got our pelvis area here. So I think this all looks pretty good. I'm going to go to vertex and select these vertices and just scale them out a little bit more. All right, that looks good. Okay, so let's rename this to pelvis one more time. And in the second video, what we'll do is we'll go ahead and start working on the leg for this character. Click on the disc in the center of the screen to go to part 2 of this series.